Hey everyone, this is Rachel, and this is the 100th episode of the Hashtag History podcast. We got really sentimental about it early on in this episode and reflected back on the awesome journey that the past nearly 3 years has been. And then after that, we of course dove into our weekly cocktail segment. So if you are here strictly for the history content, go ahead and skip to about the 10-minute mark, as that is where this week's topic begins. However, if you would like to hang out with us as we chit-chat and reminisce on many episodes and cocktails past, we'll see you there in a bit. Thanks. This is Hashtag History episode 100. Woo! Yay! Cheers!
Cheers! High five. Yeah.
I'm Rachel.
Oh, and I'm Leah.
And yeah, we made it to episode 100. 10 seasons later, 100 episodes later. Did you ever think we would make it this far?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I didn't either. Not because I don't know.
Not that we don't believe in each other.
Not that we don't believe in each other or that we didn't enjoy doing it. It's just I think a lot of times when you're working on like a new fun project or something, you don't necessarily envision it lasting for years.
Yeah.
or seeing a future like that. Totally. I don't know what I anticipated, but I did not think, nearly 3 years later that we would still be here. It has become a really big part of my life, and it's something I really look forward to every single week. And you all have made it so special, and we feel so lucky to have made it this far with only bigger and more exciting things to come.
Yeah. And the opportunities it has afforded us,
totally.
Like meeting people we never would have met otherwise.
All across the world.
It's been so fun.
It really has.
Yeah.
I like that you said that. It's afforded us so many opportunities I would have never, ever envisioned. And we've met so many people we would have never met otherwise.
Yeah.
Thank you all. It's been great.
Yeah.
If you have not yet listened to last week's episode, you are going to want to make sure you do that before tuning into this week's episode, because last week's episode really laid the groundwork and context for where we are going in this week's story. Also, if you did not listen to last week's episode, you didn't hear us share that these two episodes, part 1 and part 2 of Chappaquiddick, are actually re-recorded rebroadcasts of our first ever episodes of the podcast. We initially covered this incident in July of 2019, and for our special 100th episode, we wanted to revisit it.
That's putting it nicely. Revisit, erase it off of the planet.
Yeah, honestly, should we do that? Should we drop these and then delete the other ones?
That's appealing to think about.
It is appealing, but if we're going to delete the first 2, we might as well delete the first 20. Right? Where does one stop?
Yeah, where do you stop?
Where do you draw the line there? If you have listened to our initial coverage of this incident, we still highly encourage you to stick around and listen to these re-recorded episodes because, well, people change over the course of 3 years. Not only is our audio quality better, but also we are better as hosts of this podcast.
I would agree.
I think so.
I think we're more fluid.
I totally think so. After nearly 3 years, we
kind of know what we're doing.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I was simply going to say we've fallen into a rhythm of speaking with one another on microphones.
Right.
Honestly, everything else outside of that, it's still a work in progress. As a quick recap, though, Leah, could you kind of run through what we covered in last week's part 1 episode?
Yeah, totally. You have Ted Kennedy, who's part of the Kennedy
dynasty,
if you will. He's the youngest of all of the sons, and he has been not troubled, but just like not a good student throughout his life, and just like kind of, I don't know, got whatever he wanted. Cut to 1969, and they're throwing a party in Chappaquiddick in Massachusetts for these ladies who helped his brother's campaign, and he is driving one of these ladies home from the house. We're not sure what the intentions are. You can guess what that's about, because she also left her hotel key at the party. And then he goes off a bridge.
Yeah.
And instead of saving her, he says he attempts to save her. But anyways, he just kind of goes back to the party, grabs a couple of his buddies. They go down and try to save her, even though it's probably been an hour at this point, to no avail. So they're like, we got to get our shit together. We got to figure this out. And then Ted dives into the water and is like, stop hassling me, and swims to the mainland.
Yeah, and that's where things left off.
And that's pretty much where we left off.
A woman is submerged underwater and likely dead.
Yeah.
And no one has reported it at this point.
Yeah.
So
even though it's like hours and hours later.
Yes. This week we will be closing out on this tragic story. But before we do that, let's close out this season with a cocktail.
I concur.
I like that idea.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And this is Hashtag History,
The podcast for both history nerds and history haters alike.
where we dive into history's greatest stories of controversy, conspiracy, and corruption.
Big shout out to Miss Krista, who bought us 3 cocktails in total. This is the first of those 3.
Yay.
She left a message saying, looking forward to another year of crazy history and hearing your cocktail taste buds develop. Love the show. And I think she's referring to our slow but steady appreciation for gin.
Or really, honestly, everything. We've grown a lot.
Yeah, especially in our cocktail
taste buds.
appreciation. Yes.
Totally.
Either way, thank you, Krista. We really do appreciate you. And if anybody ever wants to sponsor one of the cocktails and get a shout out on a future episode, you can do so by clicking the link in our Instagram page. There's a link tree where you can go do it there. And there's also a link on our website.
Thank you so much, Krista. And thank you to everyone else that sponsors cocktails.
Yes, we couldn't do it without you.
We really could not.
For part 2 of the Chappaquiddick story, I wanted to do something different. But always and forever had to be literal because that's who I am.
Yeah.
At least with this cocktail segment, that's who I am. So today we're drinking the Chappaquiddick cocktail.
Oh, I didn't know there was a Chappaquiddick cocktail.
You know, the internet is an amazing thing. Contains 2 ounces of rum, 1 ounce of lime juice, a half an ounce of honey. I measured the honey with my heart.
Oh.
Half an ounce of almond extract or almond liqueur if you want to go crazy, and then bitters. So you're supposed to shake all this up, not the bitters. You're supposed to shake all the other things up over ice and then strain it into a coupe glass and then garnish with freshly grated nutmeg. We ain't that fancy. It's just from my cupboard.
From the spice cabinet.
Yeah, and I went a little step above and put a wedge of lemon because we had some.
Yes.
So special shout out to the Cocktail Virgin blog spot that I randomly found this particular cocktail on. They described this drink as like daiquiri-esque. And no, I'm not talking about like a frozen strawberry daiquiri, but like the traditional one, which we learned about from our friend Tux.
Yes.
From Beyond Reproach. Thank you to Tux for teaching us all about like traditional daiquiris.
Yes.
In this blog article, the writer asked the bartender, some random bar she was drinking at, who made her drink. She asked why they would name a drink after such a dark moment in political history. And the bartender, who was named Naomi Levy, explained, quote, Kevin Martin created the drink and how he was inspired by the beauty and tranquility of the Japanese gardens on the island. So to Kevin, it was the closest to an island paradise as one could get in Massachusetts. So it's actually not related to the incident in question, but instead to Chappaquiddick,
the island.
Cool.
That's what I have figured. I was thinking, I'm hoping it wasn't named after the incident.
Yeah,
Chappaquiddick does have a lot of history.
I was going to say that'd be really dark, but honestly, there are cocktails named after really dark things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've done it before.
Yeah.
Once that we've had on this podcast. Well, I'm really excited about it. We mentioned like the lime feels a little weird with honey and nutmeg and stuff.
Yeah.
But I love all the things separately. So hopefully I love them together.
Yeah. Cheers.
Oh my God. It's so good. What a way to close out our 100th episode, right?
Oh my God.
This is so good. I don't know how to describe it because you know what I love is it is almost fall-esque, right? Like the spices, the almond, the nutmeg, but the lime is
the rum.
And the rum is
very tropical.
Like I was going to say, tropical. I was going to say almost like bitter or sour. But like you were drinking, imagine like drinking a fall drink, but it ends with like a pucker. It's so good.
I never would imagine something like this would... Is this what Massachusetts tastes like? Or what Chappaquiddick tastes like?
This is a 10 for me.
I think it's a 10 for me too. It's so interesting. I've never had a cocktail like this before.
Okay.
Wow.
I love that we ended season 10, episode 100 on a 10. The next morning after the incident, Joseph Gargan, Kennedy's cousin, and Paul Markham, former U.S. attorney for Massachusetts and one of Kennedy's friends, were becoming suspicious that Kennedy had not actually reported the incident that had occurred the night before.
You mean they didn't think it was suspicious that a man just dove out of the car and into the water and then didn't report this incident? Okay.
Yeah, that's
surprising.
That tracks.
Yeah.
They figured if the incident had indeed been reported, surely they would have heard or seen commotion at the pond. It's not like it's that far away.
Yeah.
If nothing else, they expected cops would have shown up at the cottage for questioning. But because neither of these things happened, Gargan and Markham rushed to Kennedy's hotel over at the Shiretown Inn bright and early in the morning and demanded to know what was going on. It's reported by the men that Kennedy quite literally reclined back onto one of the room's twin beds and simply stated when questioned, quote, "I didn't report it," unquote. Kennedy stated that he had gone to bed after arriving at his hotel and assumed that Gargan would take care of the situation.
Even though he said, "Hey, I'll handle it." Like, literally.
Yeah, even though he said, "I've got this taken care of, don't worry about anything," really
Just
what
take care
your
of the
job
girls.
is to take care of the ladies back at the cottage.
Yeah.
No, instead what Kennedy is telling Gargan now is that he assumed he would take care of the situation, and by that, what he meant was he assumed that Gargan would report the incident to the cops, telling them that Chappaquiddick had been driving the car. Gargan was furious. He demanded that Kennedy go to the cops and report the incident immediately. Instead, Kennedy made a series of calls to friends and attorneys seeking their advice. The majority of these names are not necessary to remember, but I want to list them just for the sake of demonstrating just how many attorneys Kennedy ended up having by his side during this incident. So including Gargan and Markham, the following people all advised Kennedy: John Tunney, Robert McNamara, Ted Sorensen, Richard Goodwin, Lem Billings, Milton Gortzman, David Burke, John Culver, Stephen Edward Smith, and more. Yeah, isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah.
And just for pettiness sake, and I say pettiness sake because I guess it isn't really relevant to the story, but I felt that I wanted to mention one of the people that Kennedy also called that morning. In fact, the very first person he called was a woman named Helga Wagner, a woman that Kennedy had a romantic relationship with. And remember that Kennedy's wife is pregnant at this time. Gargan demanded again that Kennedy go to the cops, and then he left both Kennedy and Markham behind. According to Gargan, he did not want to accompany the senator to the police station and be involved should Kennedy end up providing a false statement. And again, I guess for pettiness sake, this is a bit of random information here that I just can't let this episode go by without inserting it. At around 2:55 that morning at Kennedy's hotel, he had the nerve to approach the front desk hotel clerk and make a noise complaint, stating that the noise from a nearby room was keeping him awake.
And let's think about this. 2:55, he was probably just getting into the hotel room. He was trying to do an alibi.
Yes.
He was trying to establish an alibi.
Yes.
Like, oh, I've been here. The noise is keeping me awake. Now
Yes.
desk clerk sees me.
And I'm glad you said that because there is some speculation about an alibi and something I'm literally just about to say. But this particular incident is just so icky to me because it's not the fact that there's a woman in a body of water, either dead or dying, that's keeping him awake. It's noise from a nearby room.
Yeah.
I hate that. Going to exactly what you just said, Kennedy had also spoken to another hotel clerk even earlier that morning, so probably closer to when he had just gotten to the hotel.
Yeah.
This hotel clerk reported that Kennedy appeared fine, certainly not in a state of shock, and simply requested to know what time it was.
He literally just swam there.
Going exactly to what you said, there is a lot of speculation that Kennedy orchestrated this particular interaction where he's just asking a hotel clerk, like, hey, do you have the time? In order to establish an alibi, if he did indeed choose to go with his initial plan of stating that it was Chappaquiddick that had been driving and that she had been in the car alone.
Yeah.
Also that morning, as Gargan and Markham are at the hotel with Kennedy, a high school science teacher and a teenager were back at Dyke Bridge attempting to fish in the pond when they spotted an automobile flipped upside down in the water. They immediately headed to would you believe it? Dyke House, which I mentioned in last week's episode, was only 150 yards from the bridge. And they told the owner there, Sylvia Malm, what they had spotted.
And pause for all you youngins. They didn't have cell phones.
No, they had to get to a landline.
Right. So that's why they had to go to a house to make the phone call.
But I think this is also worth, kind of breaking down. We discussed in last week's episode that Kennedy walked past this house in addition to 3 more houses on his way back to the party house. Granted, it was at night. However, the light was on in the house. This is in the morning. Mm-hmm. And they saw the house immediately. They knew that was their first resource to call the police from there. The owner of the house, Malm, immediately called the sheriff's office, and Chief Dominic Arena responded to the scene. Arena attempted to reach the car, but faced the same predicament as Gargan and Markham the night before. The current simply made it impossible. He dispatched the police station and got an officer and a fire department scuba diver to come down. When the scuba diver, John Farrar, arrived, it was already 8:45 a.m. While Farrar was preparing to dive into the water, Arena was getting word back from the police station that they had identified the car by its license plate number and determined that it belonged to a Mr. Edward M. Kennedy. Mm-hmm. It's reported that upon hearing this information, police initially thought that Kennedy himself had been injured and or killed in the incident. Their first thoughts were of the Kennedy curse, thinking yet another Kennedy had been killed in a tragic accident.
Yeah.
Even when Farrar reached the car and confirmed there was a body in the car, he observed, quote, a great look of relief, unquote, on Arena's face when he reported that it was not Kennedy in the vehicle and that the woman that they had found inside did not appear to be someone from the Kennedy family. Mm. Now, while what I am about to describe is, to me, probably the most fascinating component of this entire incident, it is also the most devastating and the most graphic. I'm going to describe what exactly Farrar found when he looked inside the submerged vehicle. So if that feels a little too heavy for you listeners, just skip ahead by like 60 seconds. Mm-hmm. We remember, of course, that the car was flipped upside down. Upon reaching the car and discovering that there was a body of a woman inside, Farrar pushed himself halfway through the car, so basically like to his waist. He noted that the head of the woman in the car was cocked back, with her face pressing up against the floor. Her hands were gripping the edge of the back seat as if she were pushing herself up to the floor of the car. Farrar went on to say later that if she had been knocked unconscious by the crash, she would have either sunk to the bottom or would have been floating on top. But rather, she was frozen in rigor mortis, which I think most of us know is when there is a stiffening of the muscles and joints in the hours following death. Based on the way her body was found, we know that she was pushing herself up and gasping for the very last bits of air when she died. There's actually a drawn diagram here of exactly the position of her body, how it was found, that I have for us to check out.
So it shows, it's a drawing, and it shows the original water level, which is about at her bum, and then it shows the water level of like where it's raised to, and she's like reaching up towards it. I'm assuming that's the final position she was found in. So it's clear she's like struggling for air. It's not like she died instantly or was knocked unconscious instantly. She was trying to survive. And I know we're going to get into that. But yeah, so it's clear, like, if someone had attempted to rescue her quickly.
Yes.
And I know, like, you talked about in the last episode that there was a current and it was impossible to even get into the car.
Sure.
But if you had reported it, maybe.
Exactly. You know, I'm not saying that they didn't try to get to her.
Yeah.
But they also did not try to contact those that could have gotten to her. The local fire department, the local police station, someone that could have pulled this car out of the water or something. A scuba diver, anything. Because the way that her body is positioned shows that she fought for her life. And that's really, really tragic.
Yeah.
And it shows, again, like you said, that she didn't die on impact, that she was alive for a potentially long period of time trying to save herself.
Yeah.
Farrar later testified that he believed Kopechne had not died from drowning, but from suffocation. He testified that, quote, it looked as if she were holding herself up to get a last breath of air. It was a consciously assumed position. She didn't drown. She died of suffocation of her own air void. It took her at least 3 to 4 hours to die. I could have had her out of that car 25 minutes after I got the call, but he didn't call, unquote.
Yeah.
There is, of course, no way of knowing just how long Kopechne might have lived in that car, but it's interesting to note that just 3 days before the Chappaquiddick incident, the Boston Herald Traveler actually ran a story about a woman who had spent 5 hours in a submerged automobile before she was found alive. Doctors say she lived because of an air bubble trapped inside the car, and there is evidence that there was an air bubble trapped in Kennedy's car that may have kept Kopechne alive for several hours as well. Hey everyone, we are so excited to share with you about Macy's Wine Shop. Yes, it is that Macy's. Macy's has launched their very own wine shop, which includes full-size, delicious wines curated by their experts coming from renowned wine regions, which include our home state of California and beyond. You can select exactly what type of wine you are looking for. Do you love reds? Do you love whites? Maybe a little bit of both? You can make these personalized selections quickly and easily through the Macy's Wine Shop. What makes Macy's Wine Shop better than any other online wine club is that they deliver quality wines at unmatched price points, all within 1 to 3 business days. Seriously, I ordered my wine on a Monday and had already received them by that following Wednesday. And with our link, you get $50 off a 6-bottle box of Macy's award-winning wines, which is a $95 retail value. Head to the show notes of this episode to access the discount code, or you can head to our Instagram to find the link in our bio. Cheers! It was right around 10 a.m. when Irina went to Mom's place to phone the police station to have someone sent out to locate Kennedy. To Irina's surprise, he was actually told that Kennedy was already at the police station and wanted to talk to him. And I just want to add here that in my own personal opinion, Kennedy did not end up going into the police station because he knew it was the right thing to do. Again, in my personal opinion, I think he ended up going into the police station because he knew he had no other choice. It was while he had been on a phone call, one of 17 phone calls that he would make that morning, that he got word that a tow truck was lifting his car from the water. I think upon hearing that information, he knew he had no choice but to fess up. And
I again, we talked about this in the last episode. Like, I am of generally a more critical mindset. You know, I do tend to think the worst or assume the worst of people. But it's one thing I do have to know, and I'm not saying this is an excuse in any way, shape, or form, but someone who's making like 17 phone calls, diving into the water and swimming across the mainland is not necessarily in their right mind.
No, but I do. I'm going to disagree with you slightly.
No, and I like, the other part of me is like, I don't give a shit.
Well, I think like, yeah, he wasn't in his right mind.
Shock.
He was in shock, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the next morning after you've slept it off.
Yeah.
And when you're making that many phone calls, what you're doing
is saving yourself. You're saving yourself.
And I'm not saying I've been in a similar situation.
Yeah.
I have never been in a situation like this. But even when I just need like life advice,
yeah,
I'll call 15 different people or text 15 different people and like, what would you say? What should I do? So he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Like, you don't make 17 phone calls.
You just flipped me back to being a cynic. Okay.
But because you don't make, like, I agree with you that he's not in his right mind when he's like swimming across the ocean. He's doing other like crazy rash things. To me, making
but then he's also
phone calls is a more conscious decision.
And setting up alibi by making noise complaints and like asking for the time.
Exactly.
And yeah, you're right.
I think him making all of those phone calls that morning were because he was trying to he already was assuming politically how this was going to reflect, and he was trying to save himself from the backlash.
He was calling all 12 of his lawyers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Along with his mistress.
Yeah. Along with his mistress.
When Irina got back to the police station and met with Kennedy, Kennedy admitted right away that he had been the driver.
All right.
Irina was shocked to hear this information and asked Kennedy to make a statement. Kennedy agreed that he would, that he would like to write it down and that he would like, quote, undisturbed, unquote, time to prepare the statement. Arena agreed, and he took Kennedy to a private office.
Sounds like an innocent man to me. Someone who didn't have a lot of time to think about how to react to the situation.
That's a great observation. The thing that stands out to me more so is the privilege of
yes, Mr. Kennedy.
Of course you can have time to put this together, craft this statement. Yes, of course you can use a private office. All of those things versus being like holed up in an interrogation room for how many hours with people?
12 hours, yeah.
Yes. I mean, Kennedy's attorney, Markham, was there with him and went to work on crafting the statement. When Arena later returned, he found Markham working on the statement, which he said was, quote, nearly finished, unquote, while Kennedy was pacing the floor. While watching Kennedy walk back and forth, Arena made a mental note that he could not believe that Kennedy himself had been in such a major car accident. He appeared to look perfectly normal. He did not appear to be injured in any way. In fact, he did not even appear to still be in shock or confused or anything.
Mm-hmm.
When the statement was completed, with a bunch of cross-outs and do-overs all over it, Arena went to transcribe it. And that is when it hit Arena why Kennedy appeared to look perfectly fine. It was only right then that Arena realized that the accident had occurred more than 10 hours prior. 10 hours! Can you believe that?
He had already digested it. He'd already moved on and was just trying to save himself at this point.
Yes. Yeah. Now we're at the point of trying to save yourself. Yeah. I can understand as like the police officer looking at this, assuming that like this must have just happened.
Oh, yeah.
Like the police officer had just gotten there to the pond, found the submerged car. He calls the police station and, oh, you're already there to report it. Thank God. And then he has to find out, oh, this happened 10 hours ago. And we're just here now.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have the transcription here, and I'm hoping you don't mind reading it, Leah.
I mean, it might be a little slurred, but yes, no, I'm fine. On July 18th, 1969, at approximately 11:15 p.m. in Chappaquiddick, Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, I was driving my car on Main Street on my way to get the ferry back to Edgartown. I was unfamiliar with the road, and turned right onto Dyke Road instead of bearing a hard left on Main Street. After proceeding for approximately 1/2 mile on Dyke Road, I descended a hill and came upon a narrow bridge. The car went off the side of the bridge. There was one passenger with me, just mentioning that now. One Miss Mary Jo Chappaquiddick, a former secretary of my brother, Senator Robert Kennedy. The car turned over and sank into the water and landed with the roof resting on the bottom. I attempted to open the door and the window of the car, but have no recollection of how I got out of the car. I came to the surface and then repeatedly dove down to the car in an attempt to see if the passenger was still in the car. I was unsuccessful in the attempt. I was exhausted and in a state of shock. I recall walking back to where my friends were eating, not drinking. There was a car parked in front of the cottage, and I climbed into the back seat. I then asked for someone to bring me back to Edgartown. I remember walking for a period and then going back to my hotel room. Didn't swim there. When I fully realized what had happened this morning, I immediately contacted the police. And there may have been some of my own
side comments.
Yeah,
I think we have a lot to say about that. The first thing that I'll say right away, not even dissecting like the content of it, but just the overall statement is how many people have the privilege of, I mean, this is obviously an attorney crafted transcript, right? Yeah. How many people have the privilege and the opportunity to have their attorney there with them writing up their written statement about what happened to them several hours after a crime occurred?
I have so many like other comments like and dissections of this statement. The first one being like, we're talking, and then the car went off the side of the bridge. What caused that? Like what? That doesn't just happen. And then now is when I'd like to mention that there was also a passenger with me.
Yes.
You didn't even mention that.
You're absolutely right. You did not mention that at any point earlier. But then also it's the little bit about, he says, I asked someone to bring me back to Edgartown. I remember walking for a period and then going back to my hotel room where he then rested. And then when he woke up, he remembered it. I think what he's trying to do there is account for all that time that had passed when he did not report it. I remember walking for a period. That's such an odd thing to say, right? Like, I think he's hoping, benefit of the doubt, that they're looking at this like he was in shock. So he was just walking around, not sure what was going on, went back to his hotel room, slept it off, remembered right away. Regardless of how much you've had to drink, you know when your car has gone off a bridge.
I know when I'm drunk and acting
underwater,
a fool.
100%. Like,
you know.
I can acknowledge that, like, there are times when you get, like, drunk, right? And you don't necessarily know what all's going on. You know when you personally have been submerged in water because your car went off a bridge and you know that there was someone with you.
Yeah.
And so to say that I had to sleep it off before I realized what exactly happened, I don't believe that for 1 second.
Yeah.
Not 1 second. And we know that that's not the case.
Yeah, because he went and talked to multiple people at the hotel, staff at the hotel, and he swam instead of walked. And like, he was cognizant enough to swim.
Yes. And to get to his hotel and to establish allegedly an alibi when there.
I don't like it.
After Arena had typed out this transcript, he took it back to Kennedy to double check it. You know, the privilege. Markham told Arena that this statement was not to be released to the public, nor was Kennedy going to answer any of Arena's questions until they heard back from their family attorney, Burke Marshall, whom I mentioned in last week's episode. Arena again agreed to this, but did ask Kennedy if he could see his license. Kennedy told him he didn't have his wallet on him. Arena assured him he just wanted to make sure the license was valid and had been properly renewed, to which Kennedy responded that he was sure it had been. Remember that, because it's going to come up later.
Of course it is.
We're going to skip ahead by about 3 hours now. By this point, the media was all over the story, surrounding the police station while Kennedy was holed up in a private room with Markham. Arena kept checking in on whether Kennedy had heard back from his attorney yet, to which Kennedy kept saying no. And in a rather ballsy move, Arena actually decided to go ahead and release Kennedy's typed statement to the media anyway. And as I'm sure you can imagine, Kennedy's camp was not happy about this.
Whatever.
The police station struggled with what to charge Kennedy with, if anything at all. Everyone involved was deeply concerned about the social and political ramifications at hand. After a great deal of time, Arena eventually decided to write up a traffic violation complaint, charging Kennedy with a violation of Chapter 90, Section 24, which reads that any operator of a vehicle who, quote, without stopping and making known his name, residence, and the registration number of his motor vehicle, goes away after knowingly colliding with or otherwise causing injury to any person, shall be punished by imprisonment for not less than 2 months or more than 2 years, unquote. But in order to actually complete this citation, Arena needed Kennedy's driver's license number and expiration date, which, as you will recall, was not available to him since Kennedy had previously told him he did not have his wallet on him. Arena placed a call to the registry office in Oak Bluffs to obtain the necessary information, but was essentially told by the office, like, yeah, sure, we'll get back to you later.
I mean, if it's anything like this DMV is nowadays.
You have a good point that, like, any DMV you sat on hold for 6 hours and then they're like, we can't help you, don't have the proper paperwork.
Come back.
But this is come back. But this is the sheriff.
Yeah.
And he's calling over there and they're giving him kind of a hard time. What Arena did not know was that Kennedy's administrative assistant, David Burke, one of the 5,000 people that he had helping him out that day, had actually already called over to the registry inspector to request a license check for Kennedy. Why would he do that? The registry inspector quickly learned that Kennedy's license had actually expired on February 22nd, 1969, and had not been renewed. Remember, this incident occurred in July of 1969, so his license had been expired for 5 months. At this point.
And that's not like a whoops, I forgot to do it for a month or a few weeks or a month or something. It was 5 months.
And I also think there's like a tiny bit of like, I don't know how much he was driving at this time, right? Like he had a chauffeur and stuff. But he certainly knew that his license had been expired at this point, which is why he conveniently didn't have his wallet on him and why his assistant conveniently called over to the registry office to see what the expiration date on that license was. The registry inspector, upon learning this, instructed his staff to pool the license and place it in an envelope with the car's registration on the registrar's desk. This was obviously not a usual request. The registry inspector then called over to the regional head of motor vehicles, Joe Grealish, to report it. He was instantly told by Grealish to not release any information whatsoever to anyone, including Police Chief Arena. The registry inspector called over to the registrar, told him what was going on, and was advised that it, quote, would be taken care of, unquote. 2 days later, Grealish delivered Kennedy's driver's license information to Arena, showing that Kennedy's license was valid through February 22nd, 1971. And this here was the information that Arena used to complete his citation. This is also the information that Kennedy later supplied to the court.
It's just like the fact that he's so intent on showing that he's not at fault to like that's a very lesser thing. Like, you know, people drive without their license all the time. It's not, I mean, like, it is a big deal, but like
it is a lesser offense if there weren't other things.
And the fact that him and his people were so thoughtful and methodical about this, that they would actually assure that this part was
100%.
all good, shows that, I mean, that they were being they were being
sneaky and shady.
Yeah,
absolutely. Kennedy was eventually released from the police station, where he was taken to the Kennedy compound to be examined by the Kennedy family doctor, Dr. Robert Watt. The examination that Watt performed on Kennedy determined that he had a half-inch scrape above the right ear, a bruise on the top of his head, and muscle spasm about the nape of the neck. He then diagnosed Kennedy with a concussion, contusions, and abrasion of the scalp, and acute cervical strain. Keep in mind that this diagnosis was based on the fact that Kennedy was relaying to the doctor that he was feeling confused and was obviously suffering from a severe impairment of judgment, all typical symptoms of a concussion. When the media called BS on this diagnosis, Watt later admitted that it was all based, quote, simply on what Kennedy had told him, unquote. Days later, when Kennedy had both an X-ray and an EEG, it was found that there were no abnormalities. There were several other things going on at the Kennedy compound. At this point, Kennedy has at least nine attorneys counseling him, not even including Gargan and Markham. Based on the advice provided to Kennedy by his new counsel, Gargan and Markham were to be no part of the planning sessions that were being conducted.
They shouldn't be. I mean, they were part of it. Right?
Like as witnesses? Is that what you mean? Yes. Yes.
They should not be advising him. They should not be
There's a
his
conflict
counsel.
of interest there.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you. But the reason why his new counsel says they're not allowed to be a part of it is that they were advised by Kennedy's counsel that Kennedy now considered all of his communications with them to be that of attorney-client privilege. Meaning that neither Gargan nor Markham were allowed to disclose anything that had happened that night in Chappaquiddick. That the advice they had provided to Kennedy to report the incident immediately was protected by the attorney-client privilege doctrine, and that they could not reveal it to anybody.
Did he go up to them and say, this is official, attorney, you're my attorney now?
I know, at least from my own I work in a legal office.
Yes.
My particular position, we handle investigations.
Yes.
We very, very often have attorneys on our calls to help advise us with those investigations, how we proceed and whatnot.
Yeah.
At the start of every single phone call, I have these multiple times a week. We're talking probably at least half a dozen of these a week. My director asks the attorney on the call, are we placing this under attorney-client privilege?
Yes. It's an official thing.
It is. And sometimes no. Like, actually, this call doesn't need to be. 9 times out of 10, it does.
Yeah.
And it is an official thing that you declare, a verbal thing that you declare that I am placing this conversation under attorney-client privilege, as I am the attorney and you are my client and I am providing you with advice.
Yeah. And obviously, every probably state is different and everything like that. But I would assume that, like, you're at a party with these people. The assumption is not that it's under attorney-client privilege.
Right.
They're acting as your friends.
They're acting as your friend and your family. One of them was his cousin.
Yeah. And so that's all just BS.
Yes.
Just more BS.
Mary Jo Kopechne's funeral was held on Tuesday, July 22nd, 4 days after the incident. Kennedy arrived at the funeral with his pregnant wife, Joan, and he also showed up with something else. I have a picture here for you to check it out. Oh.
So he suddenly needs a neck brace. Was he wearing one prior to this?
No, that's a no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, just for really this occasion. Even though he had appeared perfectly fine following the accident, and even though his medical prognosis showed no trauma, he showed up to Kopechne's funeral in a full-on neck brace. Now, of course, there is speculation that he did this to seek compassion, right? He was also able to easily brush off the media that had turned up at the funeral by telling them that Kopechne's funeral was not the time nor the place to make any kind of statement.
Because he's above all of, like,
it's all about her now.
it's all about her.
That Friday, July 25th, Kennedy appeared in court in response to the state of Massachusetts officially charging him with operating, quote, a certain motor vehicle upon a public way in said Edgartown, and did go away after knowingly causing injury to Mary Jo Kopechne without stopping and making known his name, residence, and the number of his motor vehicle, unquote. I think it's also important to know all of the evidence that was not provided to the court. At this time, the court did not know anything about the party at Chappaquiddick prior to the bridge incident. They did not know that Kennedy had been drinking, and the only documentation that they had been provided regarding Kennedy's license showed that it was indeed valid.
Yeah.
Kennedy pled guilty to this very specific charge, and that was it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what time do you even get for that type of charge? Do you even get time? I mean, I'm not talking about Kennedy, because obviously there's some privilege here that's going to wipe things away, I'm assuming.
Generally, for this particular charge, it was no less than 2 months, no more than 2 years.
Okay. So
However,
there's some time in prison there.
Yes. For Kennedy, however.
Yeah. Very different.
Very different. This whole proceeding lasted 7 minutes, and there were no additional questions asked, and Kennedy was not given any time or punishment. In fact, the court determined that Kennedy, quote, has already been and will continue to be punished far beyond anything this court can impose, unquote. To provide some context, while doing research for this episode, I discovered that a very, very similar incident occurred in Salem, Oregon, less than a week after the incident at Chappaquiddick. The Salem incident involved a car going through a chain on a ferry while crossing over a river. The driver of this vehicle escaped the car while the passenger drowned. And again, for context and to really emphasize Kennedy's privilege, it's important to note that the driver in the Salem incident was ultimately charged with negligent homicide. On the way out of the courthouse, Kennedy was stopped by the media, where he told them that he would be making a public statement about the incident that evening on national television. We have audio from Kennedy's televised statement here that we're going to play. The original speech was over 10 minutes long, so we have clipped some pieces here and there for you all to listen to.
My fellow citizens, I have requested this opportunity to talk to the people of Massachusetts about the tragedy which happened last Friday evening. On Chappaquiddick Island, off Martha's Vineyard, I attended on Friday evening, July 18th, a cookout I had encouraged and helped sponsor for a devoted group of Kennedy campaign secretaries. When I left the party around 11:15 p.m., I was accompanied by one of these girls, Miss Mary Jo Kopechne. There is no truth whatever, to the widely circulated suspicions of immoral conduct that have been leveled at my behavior and hers regarding that evening, nor was I driving under the influence of liquor. A little over 1 mile away, the car that I was driving, on an unlit road, went off a narrow bridge, which had no guardrails and was built on a left angle to the road. The car overturned in a deep pond and immediately filled with water. I remember thinking as the cold water rushed in around my head that I was for certain drowning. Then water entered my lungs and I actually felt the sensation of drowning. But somehow I struggled to the surface alive. I made immediate and repeated efforts to save Mary Jo by diving into the strong and murky current, but succeeded only in increasing my state of utter exhaustion and alarm. My conduct and conversations during the next several hours, to the extent that I can remember them, make no sense to me at all. Although my doctors inform me that I suffered a cerebral concussion as well as shock, I do not seek to escape responsibility for my actions by placing the blame either on the physical and emotional trauma brought on by the accident or on anyone else. I regard as indefensible the fact that I did not report the accident to the police immediately. All kinds of scrambled thoughts, all of them confused, some of them irrational, many of them which I cannot recall, and some of which I would not have seriously entertained under normal circumstances, went through my mind during this period. They were reflected in the various inexplicable, inconsistent, and inconclusive things I said and did, including such questions as whether the girl might still be alive somewhere out of that immediate area, whether some awful curse did actually hang over all the Kennedys, whether there was some justifiable reason for me to doubt what had happened and to delay my report, whether somehow the awful weight of this incredible incident might in some way pass from my shoulders. Instructing Gargan and Markham not to alarm Mary Jo's friends that night, I had them take me to the ferry crossing. The ferry having shut down for the night, I suddenly jumped into the water and impulsively swam across, nearly drowning once again in the effort, and returned to my hotel about 2 a.m. and collapsed in my room. I remember going out at one point and saying something to the room clerk. I felt morally obligated to plead guilty to the charge of leaving the scene of an accident. No words on my part can possibly express the terrible pain and suffering I feel over this tragic incident. This last week has been an agonizing one for me and for the members of my family, and the grief we feel over the loss of a wonderful friend will remain with us the rest of our lives. Whatever the future holds for me, I hope that I shall be able to put this most recent tragedy behind me and make some further contribution to our state and mankind, whether it be in public or private life. Thank you, and good night.
To reflect on the legacy of the Chappaquiddick incident, the ramifications were truly astronomical. Ted Kennedy never campaigned for the presidency, and it is suspected that Chappaquiddick is the reason why.
Oh, absolutely. He would have been, I mean, I'm not saying he would have been elected, but he absolutely, it would have been his, I don't know, like his legacy. Like
Totally.
it would have been, he would have had to do
Of
that.
course. That exactly to that. I mean, being the sole remaining male heir of, there was a lot expected of him, and there's no reason that he wouldn't have gone for the presidency other than that he had this huge stain on his past. And really it was a huge stain that he cast on the whole Kennedy family.
Mm-hmm.
What is so fascinating to me to reflect on is the fact that the same weekend, the exact same weekend as the Chappaquiddick incident, was also the exact same weekend that the first Americans landed on the moon, which was John F. Kennedy's legacy. John F. Kennedy was adamant that we would place a man on the moon by the end of the 1960s. And it just so happened that this accomplishment was realized, what likely would have been JFK's greatest moment, at the exact same time that Ted Kennedy was realizing what I would imagine was the darkest and lowest moment of his life.
Yeah.
There were several other ramifications as a result of the Chappaquiddick incident. Remember, I've mentioned a couple times that Kennedy's wife, Joan, was pregnant at this time.
You might have mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah, maybe once or twice. She ended up having a miscarriage, and she blamed it on Chappaquiddick and the heavy stress that she was under.
I fully believe that.
Mm-hmm. She and Kennedy would divorce several years later.
I fully believe that.
The district attorney's office in Massachusetts came under major fire for not investigating the incident further. There was a lot of information that a proper investigation would have revealed. And I'm going to kind of go through some bullet points of some of the items that would have been revealed had there been a proper investigation. The first one being that Kennedy had a history of serious traffic violations. He had several occasions of reckless driving for which he was cited. One of the most severe incidents is when he twice within a single week ran a red light, sped off, and then cut off his taillights so that he could not be pursued. This was back when he was in law school. He did end up having to appear in court for this incident just to get caught speeding, and without a valid license, just 3 weeks after his trial.
Privilege.
#privilege. Another example of something that would have come up had they done a proper investigation was the fact that Kennedy had some major alcohol issues. He had been drinking increasingly more in the years following his brother's assassinations, and this was a pattern that his family and friends noted. Mm-hmm. In particular, the day of the Chappaquiddick incident, it is known that he consumed several beers and more than 3 rum and cokes. It was later found out that Kennedy's chauffeur had purchased 3 half-gallons of vodka, 4/5 of scotch, 2 bottles of rum, and 2 cases of beer for the party. Another item that I want to mention is that there was no salt water on the driver's license that they ended up presenting to the police department and later the court, which clearly proves that that license was not on him at the time of the incident. Mm-hmm. Like I mentioned earlier, he made 17 calls the morning of the accident, all before going to the cops. And yet this is when he told the nation that he was in a state of shock and confusion. Mm-hmm. The owner of the cottage, when he learned what had happened that weekend, went back to the cottage to check it out, and the place had been wiped spotless. Even the trash cans had all been taken out. The only thing he found were a couple of Coke bottles. And finally, an autopsy was never performed on Chappaquiddick. It was determined early on that one would not be necessary, as authorities felt confident that it was a standard case of drowning. But even when the undertaker was preparing her body for embalming, he was shocked to find such little moisture in her lungs for a typical drowning victim. The Chappaquiddick family later tried to have her body exhumed to perform a proper evaluation, but the Kennedy family was able to stop this. Which that just speaks to the power.
Yeah, that's gross.
It is gross that the next of kin was not able to have
exhume their family's body. Like,
that's crazy. That speaks to like the level of power and privilege that this family has, and it actually kind of freaks me out.
Yeah, that's gross.
It's awful.
And I mean, like, overarching themes of these 2 episodes, like privilege and privilege. In a negative way, like
in a very, very bad way.
Yeah.
Well, that's the Chappaquiddick incident. Do you have any other thoughts, different thoughts after covering this for the second time on the podcast?
I don't remember what my initial thoughts or takeaways were on that first one. I would just say, privilege. Mm-hmm. I don't like it.
It's really awful. And I just think the thing that I always keep coming back to is that someone lost their life unnecessarily.
Totally.
And in a totally preventable way.
Uh-huh. And it's like very unfortunate that this person's death is overshadowed by the whole story, the scandal of it all, because it's connected to the Kennedy legacy.
We forget that a young woman who was this amazing, accomplished, very loved and respected woman lost her life again in a totally preventable way. Like, back it all the way up, this never ever needed to happen where this car even went off a bridge. But say it did, if he had gotten help right away, I think she would be alive. The scuba diver said, if I had gotten the call immediately after, I would have been in the water and pulled her out within 25 minutes, is what he said.
Yeah, and he suspected that she was there for much hours. Longer than that.
And there were similar incidents that showed that there were people that had been submerged in water with an air pocket for hours and had lived.
Yeah, got out.
It's so awful. Second time around, it's just as bad, maybe worse.
Yeah.
We do just want to say again the absolute biggest thank you to all of you for being here with us, supporting us, and listening to us 100 episodes later. It really means the world to us, and we're going to stop recording now before we begin crying.
Yeah, like this is real, guys.
Yeah.
We're heartfelt, man.
Very heartfelt.
Yeah. I'm tearing up.
Yeah, me
Literally.
too. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Hashtag History.
As always, we will share the pictures that we discussed on the episode to our Instagram, and all sources used to put together the episode can be found on our website at hashtaghistory-pod.com.
We would love it if you would subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you use. And also if you would share about us with your family, your friends, your coworkers, your enemies, whomever, and then give us a rate and review. That would be great.
Yeah. Social media, we are on there, man. Mm-hmm. Be sure to check us out on Instagram at #history_podcast. This is where you will want to stay super engaged to see when we'll be returning for season 11.
Yeah.
Because of that weird mid-season break that we did take, we will be returning for season 11 a little bit sooner than normal.
A bit sooner than normal. Stay tuned. We're coming back very, very soon.
Yes, we have also started a TikTok.
We started one.
We started it.
We did. That much is true.
That is true.
We did start one.
Can't say how often we post to it, but anyways, we're on TikTok at #history, all one word, and we're also on Twitter at #history_.
And come join us over on Patreon, where for only $1 a month, you can help support our books and booze supply. You also get access to some behind-the-scenes content, weekly #hangout episodes, and automatic 15% off all merchandise, and we mail you cards and stickers. Thank you so much. Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers. 100.
So far part two.
Fart two. Fart two.
Oh, okay. So
the Shiretown. How would you even say it?
Shiretown.
Things like that. So I don't think it's abnusual.
Abnusual.
I don't think it's abnusual. I don't think it's unusual or abnormal.